My name is Brandon. The victim is Bianca Michelle Devins.
Copy, 47.
Detectives Michael Curley and Brian Coramato describe the chaotic scene.
An officer pulled up and he observes Brandon.
Hi. What are you doing, man?
Brandon's armed with a knife.
Bianca Devins, a vibrant and creative young woman from Utica, New York, had her entire future ahead of her. Known for her passion for psychology and her active presence on social media, Bianca navigated the complexities of mental health and adolescence with strength and resilience. However, her life tragically came to an end in July 2019 at the hands of someone she thought of as a friend, Brandon Clark. What should have been a night of celebration and fun turned into a horrifying crime that shocked not only her community, but the entire world. How did a friendship unravel in such a horrific act? Let's find out the chilling details of Bianca's tragic and untimely death. On July 13, 2019, Bianca Devins and Brandon Clark, accompanied by another friend named Alex, attended a concert in New York City by singer Nicole Dollanganger. The event, which should have been a fun and carefree night out, became a turning point that led to Bianca's tragic death. Though Bianca and Clark had known each other for a few months, tension simmered beneath the surface, particularly because of Clark's growing obsession with her. Bianca was excited for the concert, and her mother felt reassured knowing she would be with Clark, who was considered a trusted companion by the family. However, Clark harbored a possessive infatuation that deepened as the night went on. His jealousy became evident when he saw Bianca kiss Alex, an innocent gesture that enraged him. Bianca, completely unaware of the gravity of Clark's emotions, remained oblivious to the danger she was in. As the night progressed, the trio enjoyed the concert, but Alex noticed that Clark seemed increasingly uncomfortable and distant. Following the concert, Alex did not return to Utica with the pair, leaving Bianca alone with Clark for the ride home. It was during the trip that Clark's anger began to manifest more clearly. He had spent the evening brooding over what he had witnessed and saw Bianca's behavior as a personal betrayal. However, instead of confronting her immediately, he stewed silently, posting cryptic and ominous messages on social media during the drive. One post in particular foreshadowed the horrific events to come. Clark posted an image of a dark road with a caption, "Here comes hell. It's redemption, right?" A phrase that would later serve as chilling evidence of his premeditated intent. As they drove, Bianca was completely unaware of Clark's escalating anger and jealousy. She exchanged texts with friends, and in one message, she mentioned that Clark seemed jealous. Yet, nothing in their interaction suggested the horrific violence that was soon to follow. For Bianca, this was just another evening with a friend, despite any tension that may have been building. But behind the scenes, warning signs had been visible for some time. Clark had long exhibited possessive tendencies toward Bianca. Despite her repeated insistence that they were not in a committed relationship, Clark refused to accept this, often referring to himself as her boyfriend and acting as though they were exclusive. He began fixating on her social media presence, obsessing over her interactions with others, particularly other men. Clark's social media activity in the days leading up to the murder also painted a dark picture of his mental state. He posted cryptic messages hinting at a possible violent act. In the days before the concert, he had made a series of disturbing online searches, including how to choke someone out and how to hit the carotid artery to kill someone. He had prepared for the worst, bringing with him not only a knife, but also other sharp objects. Evidence would later show that he had meticulously planned the murder, creating a to-do list of tasks to carry out during and after the crime, from setting the scene to posting about the murder online. As the car rolled through the darkened streets of upstate New York, Clark's fury was no longer just internal. He began to confront Bianca about what had happened at the concert, specifically asking her about the kiss with Alex. Bianca, feeling uncomfortable and sensing his jealousy, apologized but reaffirmed that they were not in an exclusive relationship. Her apology, however, was not enough for Clark. According to later investigations, his reaction was cold and detached, as though he had already decided on his course of action. He allegedly told her, "Sorry is not enough," a phrase that foreshadowed the violence to come. Though Bianca asked when they would return home, she had no idea that Clark had already laid the groundwork for her murder. At some point during the ride, Bianca dozed off in the back seat. Clark took advantage of this moment of vulnerability to prepare his weapons. He secured a camera on the dashboard, placed a knife by a seat, and waited. It wasn't long before he woke Bianca and initiated his deadly plan. Clark's behavior during this final confrontation revealed a deep sense of betrayal and entitlement. He demanded more than an apology. He wanted control over Bianca's life. When she reiterated that she didn't want a committed relationship, it seemed to push him over the edge. What makes someone think that murder is the only way to preserve a relationship? Could Clark have been stopped, or was his path to violence inevitable? In the early morning hours of July 14, 2019, the tragic and violent argument inside Clark's car escalated as the tension from the previous evening had finally reached its boiling point. The argument reached its tragic climax when Clark lunged at Bianca with a knife. He stabbed her multiple times, delivering the fatal blow to her neck. The attack was brutal and calculated, with Clark nearly decapitating Bianca in the process. Medical examiners would later confirm the sheer ferocity of the assault, noting the extent of the injuries to her throat and neck. Bianca, caught off guard and unable to defend herself, succumbed to her injuries within minutes. What followed was perhaps even more disturbing. After killing Bianca, Clark did not flee the scene or call for help. Instead, he calmly took out his phone and began documenting the aftermath of the murder. He took several graphic photos of Bianca's lifeless body, positioning her in a grotesque manner. These images, which showed the brutal extent of his crime, were then uploaded to various social media platforms, including Discord and Instagram. Clark's actions didn't stop there. He also posted a series of disturbing messages alongside the photos, demonstrating his complete lack of remorse. One of the most chilling messages he posted read, "Sorry, fuckers, you're going to have to find somebody else to orbit." This message was directed at Bianca's online followers, specifically those who had admired her from a distance and were often referred to as orbiters. In internet culture, an orbiter is someone who follows another person online, often in the hopes of gaining their attention or favor without ever forming a real connection. Clark, fully aware of Bianca's online presence and her many admirers, used this moment to taunt them, making it clear that he had taken her life and that they would no longer be able to interact with her. As the images spread across social media, they sparked immediate outrage and horror. Users on Discord, where the first images appeared, initially thought it might be a hoax. However, as more details emerged, it became clear that the photos were real and the panic set in. Clark continued to engage with users online, even as police were being notified about the graphic content. The images quickly circulated across platforms, with some users even attempting to gain followers by promising to share more photos of the crime. The viral spread of these horrific images compounded the tragedy, as Bianca's family soon became aware of what had happened through social media before the police could even notify them. Throughout this period, Clark maintained a disturbingly calm demeanor. He had already called his family members, leaving them with messages that sounded like a suicide note. His family, alarmed by his words, contacted the police. When law enforcement officers arrived on the scene, they found Clark sitting on a green tarp that concealed Bianca's body. In a final act of theatrics, he stabbed himself in the neck in front of the officers, attempting to take his own life. However, despite his self-inflicted wound, he survived and was arrested on the spot. Clark's actions were not only violent and premeditated, but also deeply rooted in his desire for control and attention. Even in the aftermath, his behavior indicated a desire to be remembered, as evidenced by the message he spray-painted at the scene: "May you never forget me." To truly grasp the dynamics that led to Bianca Devins' murder, it's critical to explore the childhood experiences of both Bianca and Brandon Clark. Their formative years were marked by challenges that shaped their behaviors and decisions. How did these early experiences set the stage for their fatal encounter? Let's explore their past to understand the tragic trajectory that unfolded. Brandon Clark's disturbing behavior and violent actions can be traced back to a troubled childhood that played a significant role in shaping his psychological profile. His early years were marked by trauma, including witnessing domestic violence between his parents. Clark had seen his father hold his mother at knife point, a terrifying event that left deep scars and likely contributed to his violent tendencies later in life. This exposure to intense family conflict and aggression may have fostered a skewed understanding of relationships and conflict resolution, leading to the controlling and possessive behaviors he exhibited towards Bianca Devins. Psychologists and experts analyzing the case pointed out that Clark's fixation on Bianca and his inability to accept rejection were further signs of emotional instability. Clark's actions leading up to the murder show a deep-seated need for control and validation, common traits seen in individuals with unresolved childhood trauma. Additionally, his behavior aligns with what experts refer to as rejection violence, where an individual becomes violent when they feel a sense of rejection or loss of control in a relationship. Despite presenting himself as a mild-mannered individual, his inner turmoil and inability to process emotional conflict healthily culminated in a violent outburst. Bianca Devins had a relatively normal childhood in Utica, New York, marked by her close relationship with her family. Her early years were filled with love and support from her mother, Kimberly Devins, and her siblings. Despite a nurturing home environment, Bianca began to struggle with mental health issues as she reached her early teens. By the age of 9, Bianca started showing signs of anxiety and separation issues, particularly from her mother. She had difficulty attending school and often wanted to stay home, clinging to her mother for emotional support. As these anxieties persisted, she began seeing a therapist at a young age, which helped her understand and manage her emotions. However, when Bianca entered her teenage years, her mental health struggles intensified. At around age 13, she developed symptoms of depression, further exacerbating her emotional distress. Her struggles continued into high school, where she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, BPD, a mental health condition that can cause mood swings, difficulties in relationships, and impulsive behaviors. This diagnosis, along with her struggles with depression and anxiety, shaped most of her teenage years. Despite these challenges, Bianca remained close to her family and was a caring older sister. Bianca Devins was a vibrant young woman who had just graduated high school in 2019 and was preparing for her future, with plans to study psychology at Mohawk Valley Community College. However, her struggles with mental health shaped much of her life, causing her to seek solace in online communities. These platforms became a space where she could escape the difficulties of her reality. Bianca was highly active on social media, particularly Instagram and Discord, where she built an online persona and became part of various internet subcultures. Her edgy e-girl aesthetic, characterized by her bold, colorful hairstyles and alternative fashion sense, drew attention from many followers. However, this virtual space also exposed her to darker elements of the internet. She became the target of online harassment, specifically from incel communities, where some individuals viewed her as an object of obsession. It was on Instagram where Bianca first encountered Brandon Andrew Clark in April 2019. At age 21 years old, Clark had lived through a difficult childhood, witnessing domestic violence, including an incident where his father held his mother at knife point. This trauma likely contributed to his unstable behavior and violent tendencies later in life. He and Bianca quickly connected through social media, and the relationship developed into a complex, emotionally charged dynamic. Clark's possessiveness over Bianca grew quickly. Friends and family noted that Bianca was not interested in a romantic relationship with him, despite Clark's clear desire for something more. One of Bianca's close friends also suspected that Clark used drugs as a means to keep her close, offering her substances to prolong their time together. Bianca's mental health struggles also played a role in shaping her interactions with Clark. She had been in and out of therapy for years, dealing with the effects of depression and anxiety from a young age. Her diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, BPD, a condition characterized by emotional instability, fear of abandonment, and difficulty maintaining relationships, added another layer of complexity to her situation. While Bianca sought solace in her online identity, this virtual space was also where Clark's obsession grew, eventually spiraling into a fatal tragedy. With the heinous crime so widely publicized over social media, let's see what the wider community had to say about Clark's acts. The internet played a central role in both amplifying and exacerbating the trauma surrounding Bianca Devins' murder. Platforms like Instagram struggled to quickly remove the disturbing content posted by Clark, and in some cases, images remained online for days, despite public outrage and direct pleas from Bianca's family to take them down. The viral spread of these images was facilitated by the very nature of social media. Platforms like Instagram and Twitter were soon flooded with these images, with some users deliberately sharing them to gain attention. Some trolls even went as far as to send these images directly to Bianca's family members, causing them immense distress. Bianca's stepmother, Lisa Devins, later said in a public statement that every time she closed her eyes, she could see the horrific images of her stepdaughter's body. The speed at which the images circulated demonstrated the darker side of social media, the ability to spread violent, harmful content to a global audience with little regulation. As the images continued to proliferate, Bianca's family and friends were repeatedly victimized by the sight of her death being exploited for clicks, likes, and shares. Public reaction to the widespread sharing of Bianca's death images was immediate and intense. Many were horrified that such disturbing content could be shared so freely, while others felt deep sympathy for the Devins family, who were being bombarded with these photos. Despite the outcry, some users continued to mock the situation, creating memes and sharing doctored images to further torment Bianca's loved ones. This online harassment only added to the family's grief, leaving them in a constant state of trauma as they were forced to relive the tragic event through these images. Bianca's mother, Kim Devins, expressed her heartache over the fact that so many people had seen the images of her daughter's murder. She described it as a form of psychological terrorism. The emotional toll on the family was profound, with many of them suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as a result of the graphic content being forced upon them. Psychologists noted that exposure to such graphic violence online can have lasting effects, not only on the victim's family, but also on those who view the content. This secondary trauma is a significant issue, as it normalizes violence and desensitizes viewers to the real-life consequences of such acts. The failure of social media platforms to promptly take down the disturbing content drew significant criticism. Instagram, in particular, came under fire for allowing the images to remain online for nearly 2 days before they were removed. While Facebook and Twitter also faced backlash, it was Instagram's slow response that garnered the most outrage. Many users reported the photos multiple times, only to receive automated responses stating that the images did not violate the platform's community guidelines. In the face of this online horror, Bianca's community rallied together to honor her memory. A candlelight vigil was held in her hometown of Utica, where hundreds of people gathered to celebrate her life. The Adirondack Bank Center was lit up in pink, Bianca's favorite color, as a symbol of solidarity and love. Supporters shared messages of hope and comfort, using the hashtag #PinkForBianca to flood social media with positive images in an effort to drown out the horrific photos of her death. Though the internet had been a source of immense pain for the Devins family, it also became a platform for healing, as strangers across the globe united to protect Bianca's memory. But as the legal battle for justice unfolded, one question remained. What consequences did Clark face for his heinous act? And how did Bianca's family ensure her legacy would live on? Brandon Clark was arrested on July 14, 2019 at the scene of Bianca Devins' murder in Utica, New York. Following the murder, Clark attempted to take his own life by stabbing himself in the neck with a knife, but law enforcement officers arrived before he could die from the wound. Upon arrival, officers found Clark lying next to a green tarp, which was covering Bianca's body. The arrest came shortly after Clark himself had called 911 to report the murder. During the 911 call, he confessed to the crime, stating that he had killed Bianca and intended to kill himself. According to reports, Clark sounded calm and methodical during the call, indicating that his actions were premeditated. Clark's arrest was a pivotal moment in the investigation, as it allowed law enforcement to secure the crime scene and collect vital evidence. Notably, Clark had prepared a series of digital media, including graphic photos and videos, which he posted on social media platforms, further cementing his intention to achieve notoriety through his violent actions. Officers quickly transported him to the hospital to treat his self-inflicted wounds before formally charging him with second-degree murder. Initially, Brandon Clark pleaded not guilty to the murder of Bianca Devins, despite the overwhelming evidence, including his confession to the murder during the 911 call and the photos he posted online. Clark's defense appeared to explore several strategies to avoid a long-term prison sentence. His legal team briefly considered using an extreme emotional disturbance defense, which could have reduced his charge from murder to manslaughter, potentially resulting in a lighter sentence. However, Clark eventually changed his plea to guilty in February 2020. In a statement, Clark claimed he wanted to spare Bianca's family from having to endure the details of her murder during a full trial. While this gesture might have appeared as a sign of remorse, it was seen by many, including Bianca's family, as a further attempt to manipulate public perception. The family remained skeptical of Clark's motivations, particularly in the light of his continued erratic behavior during the legal process. Following his guilty plea, Clark's sentencing hearing was delayed multiple times due to complications related to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the interim, Clark attempted to withdraw his guilty plea, arguing that his lawyer had pressured him into accepting the deal. He claimed that he had not fully understood the legal ramifications of his guilty plea and sought to have it overturned. This move caused additional emotional strain on Bianca's family, who had already endured months of legal proceedings and media attention. During the hearing in which Clark attempted to reverse his plea, the judge reviewed his original statements and found no evidence that Clark had been coerced or misled. The judge denied his request to change the plea, stating that Clark had made a conscious decision when he admitted to killing Bianca. Throughout his process, prosecutors continued to argue that Clark's actions were calculated and premeditated, as evidenced by his online searches for how to commit murder, his preparation of a murder weapon, and his deliberate decision to film and post the crime online. In March 2021, Clark was officially sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for second-degree murder. The sentence meant that Clark would not be eligible for parole until he had served at least 25 years behind bars. The sentencing brought some measure of closure to Bianca's family, but they emphasized that no amount of prison time could ever fully heal the pain caused by Bianca's brutal death. In response to the widespread sharing of Bianca Devins' death photos on social media, her family, alongside Congressman Anthony Brindisi, pushed for the introduction of Bianca's Law. This proposed legislation aimed to hold social media companies accountable for the content shared on their platforms, particularly in relation to violent or graphic images. The central focus of the law was to require companies with more than 100,000 monthly users and $10 million in revenue to create dedicated offices responsible for identifying and removing violent content. Bianca's Law was designed to address the ethical and legal void that were exposed by the tragic events surrounding her death. The public's outcry over the fact that Bianca's murder was used as online content for likes and shares highlighted a glaring issue with current social media moderation practices. Bianca's family, with the help of lawmakers, sought to ensure that no other family would have to endure the trauma of seeing a loved one's death broadcast to the world without recourse. Although Bianca's Law was a federal initiative, it also inspired legislative action on a state level. In January 2022, the New York State Assembly passed a law that specifically targeted the sharing of crime victims' images. The legislation made it illegal to post, share, or distribute personal images of crime victims if the intent was to harass, degrade, or exploit the victim or their family. This law, which was seen as a victory for Bianca's family, was signed into law by Governor Kathy Hochul in December 2022. For Bianca's family, the passage of this law was a bittersweet victory. While they knew it would not bring Bianca back, they believed it could protect future victims from suffering the same fate. Bianca Devins' legacy continues through various initiatives that reflect her passion for mental health awareness and helping others. Her family established the Bianca Devins Memorial Scholarship Fund, which supports students pursuing degrees in psychology, in recognition of her aspiration to work in mental health. Their scholarship aims to assist those committed to understanding and addressing mental health challenges, a cause close to Bianca's heart due to her own struggles with mental illness. The tragic murder of Bianca Devins serves as a sobering reminder of how dangerous obsession and unchecked mental health issues can become. Her story continues to inspire discussions about mental health awareness, the responsibility of social media platforms, and the impact of online relationships. If you are moved by her story, we encourage you to support mental health initiatives or encouraging conversations about responsible online behavior. What do you think about the role of social media in this case? Should platforms be held more accountable? Like our video for more such content and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed.